So the other day I actually watched this video by these YouTubers by the name of Ada and Peach, I believe that's how you pronounce it. I don't think I pronounced that correctly. But anyhow, there's a video titled, Do We Actually Want Vulnerable Men? Now, considering the fact that this is a topic I have spoken upon for the last couple of years now, actually, I found it interesting that, other people were finally chatting about it. I thought this would be fun. I read some of the comments and I was like, I'm again just like really glad that a lot of these experiences are actually finally being spoken upon. And that experience is when the men are emotionally vulnerable with women. They don't normally get a very positive or affirming response from the fairer sex, one could say. I've mentioned in numerous video responses, whenever I hear, this is when I used to make video responses to feminists, and they're talking about, well, how come men can't cry, how come men can't be vulnerable, and I would always tell them, like, no, men can be, just not around women, because whenever men are vulnerable or open around women, a lot of the time, that vulnerability is turned against us. Either one, the woman will lose attraction towards us, which actually, interestingly enough, was mentioned in this very video. A young lady actually confirmed what I've been saying this whole time.
Full honesty, like there's definitely a time in my life, I'd say like 10 years ago, where men have shown, the partners I was with, like shown vulnerability, and I thought it was funny. And I didn't think it was masculine, and for me it was a sign of weakness. Now the more I work on myself, and the more that doesn't scare me so much anymore. It's actually strength, you know? Because we're part of the patriarchy. We're just as active in it, you know what I mean? Like, I think, and that's it, we're just participating in that too. But then we're like, yes, there's totally the double standard where we're like, hey, show your emotions. And then when they do, we don't know how to deal with it.
I think it's true. I think they might be having some backlash and backfires on that, because we do want men to be more vulnerable, but at the same time it's like, ooh, don't be too vulnerable, I don't like this, now I'm not attracted to you.
To be fair, it's only one woman, but I mean, you got that out the horse's mouth, so you know it does indeed happen, my friends. 2, it is used against us sometimes, and an argument. Our insecurities are turned in on us and used as a sword to cut us down in a debate or some argument or some frustration that happens in a relationship between two people. This was also mentioned in that very same video. I think Ada, I believe his name is, actually told a story where this happened to him in one of his relationships.
Most people, when they're not gonna have any resources, they're gonna use that against you.
I mean, I had one girl I was briefly seeing, and you guys remember this video potentially, but I told her that my father wasn't in my life any longer. I didn't explain to her how, but he just wasn't in my life. And in a heated argument where she was screaming at me and I was being very quiet, at one point she said, this is why your father walked out on you, because you're nothing in life. Not knowing that my father had passed away. And so she said that, and she used my secret against me, and I was just like, oh, okay, cool. I understand what that is.
So the long and short of it is, no matter how you slice it, a lot of men, especially if you read the comment section down below of that very video, a lot of men are singing the same song. That when they were open and emotionally vulnerable to a woman, nothing good really came out of it. And I can tell you guys, a lot of the times, man, that was my direct experience. The reason why I say it is my direct experience is that's redundant. The reason why I was able to realize that being open and emotionally vulnerable to a woman was, in the immortal words of Dio Brando, was because I have been emotionally vulnerable with women. And I have your women, and I remember this was back in the day. I used to believe that that women wanted nice guys. They wanted guys who wrote them poems, treated them well, were emotionally vulnerable. I believed it. And every time I was emotionally vulnerable with a woman, ain't nothing really good came out of it. I remember the very first time. I used to tell girls how I felt about them all the time, because in my mind, it was better to directly communicate that I felt feelings for you rather than like bullshit around each other and like stumble and trip and fall into a relationship. And for me, and I was wrong, but the way I thought about it was that if I was honest about what I wanted and you liked me and I liked you, and we would just date each other, and then we'll just be happy together. And so, the very first girl I tried to date back in the way back day, I remember I told, I'll never forget this shit, dude. This is the first time I used to be really shy, and I used to never even like say a word to a girl that I was attracted to, but I was going to change that in high school, and this was the first girl, man. I remember the first time I laid eyes upon this girl, man. It was like something snapped. It was like every part of my life had been waiting for this moment to arrive, and here it was, and I felt that sugary surge of affection, and I was like, I want that woman. I was done. I didn't need any other one. I saw her. I was like, I want that one. And so I pursued that one woman. And needless to say, I failed spectacularly, but that is another story from at the time. Actually, no, that's kind of the story for this time, but only part of that story because more happened. I'll tell you that later. Anyhow, remember, we're sitting on the activity bus and we're on our way back home. And I was like, I gotta tell you something. I'm skipping ahead a lot, but I was like, I gotta tell you something. And she's like, what? And I'm like, I really like you as a person. I like talking to you and connecting with you and like being your friends. I just really, really like you. I just said I really liked you like a lot, you know, and I just told her, I just poured my heart out, man. And this girl looked at me like I said the sky was green, bruh. This girl gave me the dumbest fucking look I've ever seen in my. She looked so like I said this like I said the sun was made out of cheese. She just looked at me and was just like, okay. And that was her response. That was her response to me pouring me bloody heart out. She just was like, eh? She had no response. And I remember the second time I told the girl how I felt. This was on the eve. This took me a while to come to this conclusion, right? It took me a while. And I was a stupid kid. I used to think, you know, if I voice how I feel, maybe I'll feel better. Maybe instead of balling it in, it would be better to express it to the person and like deal with it out in the open. I learned a lot of people don't operate like that. I operate like that. I love operating like that. I love getting things out in the open and dealing with it there and then and figuring it out. And then we move forward from there. I love doing that shit. A lot of people, they don't like doing that. And so I told this girl, I was on the bus once again, different girl. And I said, you know, I think I'm in love with you. And she looked at me. She said, she's like, of course you had no words. There was nothing she could say. And to be fair, in hindsight, you know, you drop a bomb like that on somebody, I would usually think that it was a positive thing. But, you know, in hindsight, being older, you know, dropping something like that on somebody, that's heavy, that's deep. That's a quite the weight to hold there. So I understand her reaction there. But the point was, I'm telling those two stories, and I got a lot of them. But I'm telling those two stories there. Being open, being vulnerable, being honest. Can't give me none. It was, dare I say, I mean, you know, maybe I shouldn't be making light of my own personal experiences, but telling girls how I felt and being honest and sharing my insecurities with them has never really gotten me anywhere. And honestly, I understand why. I understand it took me a while, but I understand why women operate like this. And the reason why is, well, there's lots of reasons why, and I'm going to go over them. So where should we start? Let's start off with this one. The long and short of it is, when it comes to men being honest with how we feel, despite the fact that women lack self-awareness to an almost delusional degree. Some women just really don't seem to understand like what they're doing and how they're operating through the world. Like they're like almost like a fantasy world. It's really weird. You know, you ever hear you'll hear girls like, and I'll make a whole video response to a very good account of this to like show you guys. And quote me, I'm gonna make that video response. I promise I will. But it's almost delusional, you know. It's just not quite something I can really wrap my head around. But like a lot of girls, they like really lack self-awareness, and a lot of girls will say they like nice, saccharine, sweet guys, and they say they want guys who are emotionally vulnerable because on paper it just sounds, it sounds great. It sounds awesome. It sounds like I want a guy to communicate how he feels, right? Because how else could you have a functioning relationship? I mean, intellectually and logically, and even emotionally, that all makes sense. What a lot of women don't recognize is two things. One, they don't know what the fuck they're talking about. And two, they're not really equipped with how to even deal with their own emotions, let alone the emotions of another person. So we start with one. A lot of girls, like I say, just lack self-awareness. They don't even understand the things that makes their vaginas slick with the vagina juices. They don't really even understand what they themselves are attracted to. You read lots of articles of they're just incredible degrees of confusion. A lot of women, again, say they want one thing and find themselves repeatedly dating another guy. If you ask the girl, why did you even like him? They're like, I don't know. And I've done this numerous times. You see, I just ask, why do you even like this guy? I don't know. You get that a lot because like they don't know. They don't think about this stuff, man. They feel emotions, but they don't really think. And because they're feeling emotions and they're not thinking and compartmentalizing them and analyzing them, they don't know how to fix a problem by themselves. Now, this isn't all women, but a lot of them who lack that self-awareness and lack that analysis of someone's emotions and how someone feels, they don't really know what to do when someone is open and honest with them. And this is the same thing with a lot of girls who don't know how to reject guys. This is the same thing with a lot of girls who don't know how to deal with guys who are very open and honest. Well, it is a little redundant, but the point is, because they can't even understand how to deal with themselves, they don't even have an understanding of their own mind or their own feelings, they don't know what to do when somebody else is open. Because, like I said, they don't even have the tools to deal with themselves. So it's like, you can't take responsibility for another person. And a lot of women feel like that. A lot of women feel like they have to take responsibility for someone else. Now, responsibility in women as a concept is, I jokingly say, is antithetical, but it is especially antithetical. This is not a joke, but especially antithetical to men. Like, women will take responsibility for their children today, tomorrow, next week. They won't do it for themselves. I don't know why, but they most certainly will not do it for men. Because, and we'll get to the because the whole because is one whole thing. We'll get there in a second. But what's important to understand about this point here is that for the women who are not looking at men as being weak when they're being vulnerable, but women who are confused and scared, it's more because they don't understand like what to do and how to deal with it. You know, that's where a huge degree of their confusion in that area comes from, right? So moving forward, you know, you have the women who think that being vulnerable is weak. And this isn't just so much that goes to like traditional gender roles. This is something that's like, we're talking about the curse of man here, right? Now I know old people who are guiltless heathens, old people who are the anti of the theists. They'll probably get their fifis hurt when I describe this next section. But you're just going to have your fifis hurt. On a serious notion, though, you know, the Bible is a really interesting piece of literature, right? Because if you read the book of Genesis, like the first story, like how God punished Adam and Eve, you'll find something interesting about humanity, right? Or how these people conceived of humanity, even if there's no sky wizard in there. No sky daddy. Okay, fine. Even if there is no sky daddy that cursed man, you'll notice something interesting about the curse that man has. And by the way, when I'm saying man, I mean like humans. I'm talking about men and women, right? If you specifically look at the curse of women, you'll find that the Lord cursed women to have their desire be to their husband, and their husbands will rule over them. So this isn't prescriptive. It isn't saying what should be. It's descriptive. It's saying what is. This is how it is. Women want men to be over them. Now, a lot of women will not express it this directly. I say the vast majority of women won't really. Um, but their actions, the men they pick, they're clearly trying to date men who have some degree of power over them, whether he be physically taller or socially has more clout than her, or as abstractly just has more money than her and can get her things. Women want to be dominated by men. They want to follow men and let men be their leaders. That's their nature. That is their curse. That it is what it is. Sorry. I didn't make all the rules. I didn't make it this way, but that's how it is, right? And so because this is how women view men just like intrinsically, a lot of people in general have a fundamental misunderstanding of emotional vulnerability and how it can, depending on the context, be a strength. What I mean by that is emotional vulnerability, on its surface, as it looks plainly, is weakness. What is a vulnerability? A vulnerability is synonymous with weakness, right? So, of course, they would view it as you being weak when you're open and spewing and crying and feeling bad and feeling pressured and all of that. Of course, they view it as a weakness, and that's what the word means. That's what it's synonymous with. But what a lot of women fail to recognize and understand is that a man trusting you, or any human being for that matter, really, trusting you by being open and giving you their weakness is strength. It is trust. It's them saying, I understand that this can hurt me, but I'm strong enough to deal with what may happen after I give you my weakness. A lot of women do not respect that element, honestly, just of love and compassion and respect. Well, that's a little like a lot of women don't recognize that emotional vulnerability of men as a way that we men express that we trust them, that we love them, that we're saying, hey, here are the keys to destroy me, but I have the strength to deal with it. I trust you and love you enough and know you won't hurt me. Supposedly, that's how it's supposed to be. Now, a lot of women, because they don't respect it, will use that to try to hurt those men in awful arguments and awful situations. That is true, but that's what it represents, and that kind of goes with the whole they don't respect it thing I'm saying. Because emotional vulnerability in its nature is saying this is a weakness, I'm insecure about this, women do not respect men because they don't recognize that love that men, like I just said, but also because, again, the way women are viewing men is as protectors, as things that give them stuff, as providers. And if they feel like that man is weak and he can't provide for them, then they lose their attraction. They don't want it. And it was interesting because it took me a while to really recognize like that fear and that insecurity in women, right? Because for a long time I just didn't really get it. And it's funny how I finally did get it. I remember I was actually, it's really stupid, but excuse me, I just really blew my mind when I finally got it. And it was I was watching an old episode of Yu-Gi-Oh! And Yami Yugi lost against Raphael during the Waking the Dragons arc. And so little Yugi sacrificed himself, so his soul got taken away, and Yama Yugi got to stay. And at the end, this is what happens with Yama Yugi, right?
I don't get it. How can you be talking to us if he took your soul?
Not mine. Yugi's! It's all my fault! Yugi! Come back! It should have been me, not him! It's not fair!
And so, I remember, like as a kid, like just being scared, just being fucking terrified, watching Yama Yugi break down and cry. And I didn't really recognize why, right? But the reason why was because Yama Yugi is supposed to be the ace. He's the main. He's one of the main characters, right? He's supposed to be the cool guy who gets you through these tough problems, right? He's the guy. He's got so much confidence. He's so strong mentally. He's wise. He's the guy who's gotten us through everything up to this point with Pegasus, with Merrick, all these other issues. He's the crutch that little Yugi falls back on. He falls back on Yama Yugi as a crutch. And I'm like, to see him weakened and sad and defeated, it's like, well, what the fuck does that mean for us? Like, if he can't handle this shit, like, how can anyone else do? Oh. That's how women feel when they see the man or men break down. It's because, if you harken back to what I said earlier, a lot of women are not really equipped with how to deal with their own emotional issues and their own emotions and lack self-awareness. And thus, they legitimately rely on men to be able to do that for them and to be able to take that load and handle it. Now, of course, it's incredibly selfish. Don't get me wrong. It's very selfish. But that is what they are expecting from us. And that is why being emotionally vulnerable, not only by definition of the word, being emotionally weak, women lose their attraction to us because they are scared and terrified and they don't think that we can handle the world or handle the problems of. I know I keep bringing up Dio, but that's what it is. They don't think that you can handle the problems of the world. You know what I mean? So, and that's where a huge portion of it is coming from. Now, again, so to summarize, my friends, it all comes down to this. There's two reasons why women seem to not be able to handle emotional vulnerability of men. One, they don't know how to handle it. They don't know what to do when someone is emotionally vulnerable. So it just becomes an awkward situation. And they're just like, okay, cool. You feel things. I don't know, right? And also, number two, being emotionally vulnerable is considered a weakness because you're showing people your belly. You're showing them the keys of which they can destroy you with. Now, of course, the solution to this, because our buddies Ada and Peach didn't really have any solutions, is a very simple one, but it is also very difficult because it requires humility and understanding from the opposites, from the fairer, more empathetic sex. The fairer and more empathetic sex has to accept the fact that men can be emotionally vulnerable, and they have to accept the fact that men do have feelings, and they have to work towards actually understanding that being emotionally vulnerable with that woman in particular is him being strong. It is him trusting her, and she has to learn how to respect that. How does she respect that? With empathy, with kindness, with compassion and understanding. That's a redundant. You can't use understand, but hopefully you guys get my point here. My point is women have to take a step back and they have to accept the fact that a man is more than one thing and that we are a lot more complex than just big guys who handle problems. You know what I mean? We also have problems as well, and they have to accept that, we can 100% fight anything off. I mean, like, for example, I always tell lots of women, I've got no issue fighting some stranger off of you if he tries to grab you or attack you in public. I got you 100%. Okay, no one's going to touch you in my private. You're safe there. But the thing that is interesting to me is that a lot of women, they don't recognize that protective area I have for them because I'm always so open and emotional. So they can't even recognize that warrior spirit, that gentlemanly spirit. That's what's interesting about being a gentleman, actually, which it's its whole subject. But the idea of having different personas and different skills in different areas and different, reactions to whatever is going on. On the one hand, you can absolutely be a very protective and cool-headed person in stressful situations, but still be sad and insecure and want the attention and love from a woman in your life. And a lot of women, they don't recognize that you're more than just one persona of your being. And I think a lot of women would have to recognize that. Because as far as I understand it, my friends, this, my brothers, is why telling a woman how you feel is... So, with that being said, I just hope you guys got something out of today's video. And if you did, man, go and click the like button. Go and click that subscribe button. Comment in the comment box below. As always, you guys have yourselves a great day. I'll see you cool cats soon. Adios.